Welcome back to the 13th Destiny podcast with Magnum. I'm your host, James Magnum Cook. And tonight, we're not going to be having a guest on. My upcoming co host for this area, who I wasn't going to name until she was on, but I will name now. My co host for this area will be Lisa Hank Williams, and my co host for the West Coast area for the time being will be Danielle Long. And so these are my two upcoming female co hosts. And just wanted to get their names out there because they will be working with me and I will be working with them. And it's going to be a lot of fun having two different female co hosts on from time to time with me, with guests and other things that I'm doing with the podcast. So tonight, as I said, this is not going to be a guest show. This is going to be kind of a story show. And tonight I've decided, I went back and forth deciding whether or not I was going to talk about a ghost story I knew or about urban legends from around the state of Kentucky, or the Commonwealth of Kentucky, more or less, as we call it. So I decided at the end of thinking this through, I decided we would talk about are creepy urban legends that we have here in Kentucky, as they've been described by some other people. And we have some very, very unique urban legends that are creepy ghost and monster stories that have been passed down through the generations here in the Commonwealth. And bear with me, and hopefully I will try not to if I get dry mouth or anything, I'll try not to drink anything that's going to make sound on the story. But obviously, if I'm going through a lot of this stuff, I just want you to know that it's going to take a little bit. But I want to talk about this. Did you know that in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we have an urban legend about a Bigfoot type creature? Yes, Bigfoot type creature. This is referred to as the hillbilly beast, and it dates back to the days of Daniel Boone. It definitely describes a very hairy, smelly, Bigfoot-like being, and it howls. The legend was featured on some of, I believe, the History Channel at one point. I can't remember exactly the show that it was featured on, but I do believe it was on the History Channel at one point. I might have to look that up. But this is an urban legend here in Kentucky. And as I said, it dates back to Daniel Boone. So we have our own Bigfoot type creature that exists here in the Commonwealth according to the urban legends. Yes, that's very interesting. And it's not the only monster, and it's not the only ghost, and there's a lot. I don't know how many are. I would think I'd have to go through a lot to find everything for you to do the show and give you every single one. That would probably take a couple of shows, because Kentucky is very, very interesting and has a lot of paranormal activity. There are abandoned churches, there are graveyards, and all kinds of stuff strung throughout the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky. And there are tons of stories to go with all of these activities. But tonight, I'm going over some of the more urban legend type things that we've got here in Kentucky and have been referred to as urban legends. So yes, the hillbilly beast is a very interesting part of the overall urban legends of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And what is interesting about this is that not only did the settlers that came into Kentucky talk about the existence of this creature, and this is interesting, researching, I found that not only were there mentions of it from settlers that came through to Kentucky, but a lot of the Native Americans also had referred to this particular monster. So it lends itself to some realistic stuff that you, even though it's called an urban legend and maybe some people have never seen this, I find it fascinating that both the settlers and the Native Americans had stories about this creature that did not, that added up, that you both were doing something that would show that both of these types of people have encountered this creature that it wasn't told to the others until after some of the encounters, and I found that fascinating. So it lends itself to be very, very interesting in lots of reasons. And so, if you've not heard about the Hillbilly Beast, please look that up. The Hillbilly Beast is one of our urban legends here in Kentucky, and it's a rather fascinating story. And there's some information out there about it, and I hope that you will check into that. So that is one of the urban legends I wanted to talk to you about tonight for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I'm not going to give a lot of details on my stories tonight because I want you to take the time to research them or travel here to Kentucky. But now remember, if you travel to Kentucky and you are here doing research or anything like that, please be safe and don't do anything that would get you hurt or anything like that. I want all of the guests, excuse me, I want all the people that listen to the show to enjoy the encounter if you decide that you want to find out more, and if you do to Kentucky. But please do not endanger your life in any way ever doing anything. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is we have an urban legend about a Sleepy Hollow. Yes. And the Kentucky legend of the Sleepy Hollow doesn't involve a headless horseman, no. It instead, our particular Sleepy Hollow story is very different. It tells about a hearse and ghostly cries here in Kentucky. Um, the prospect is that a hearse appears from thin air and runs drivers off the road. They also say sounds of crying can be heard from what once was a crybaby bridge. It is said that decades ago, women would throw their unwanted or sickly children off the sides to their death. Time warps have also been experienced, according to the legends. Drivers claim to enter the road and exit several hours later, according to the time. Talk about terrifying Kentucky urban legends. And here I am. I'm from Kentucky. I've never experienced that. I've traveled all over the Commonwealth, and to this day, so far, I've never had anything like that happen. And so I will admit to that. But I do know of the legend, and I have heard about it many times. So that's why it's considered an urban legend. I think there are people that say they've experienced this, and other people have not. Um, but it's certainly terrifying when you think about it, just as many people have indicated that it was terrifying. Can you imagine driving, on the road, and the next thing, several hours later, you're somewhere else? This also lends itself a lot to the UFO type stuff, if you think about that as well. Considering that is something that often has happened, supposedly, with the UFO encounters, where you literally have lost track of time. So again, I traveled all over the Commonwealth, and to be honest with my, you know, listeners, I have never experienced it personally, but I am aware of it, and so I'm bringing these things to light tonight on my stories because I find them fascinating, even if you've never experienced it. I find the fact that some people say they've experienced these, or there are many stories about the urban legends of Kentucky. It's certainly an interesting aspect of some of the things and guests that I will want to have on my show coming up, especially the paranormal investigators and people like that. So when I have those on, it's going to be very interesting. I don't know per se on every single information about all my guests. I have some guests coming up that are paranormal investigators, and of course, I do not know every single thing that they have followed due to the fact I follow a lot of stuff, and I try to keep up with things as much as possible with those that I plan to have in the future. And of course, I will do as best research I can before I do have my guest on. But at the same time, I think that there's going to be times that I just can't follow every single thing. But I will do my best to bring a good show to you when I have the guest on, or even when I'm talking tonight about these things, about these urban legends here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, my home state. And just try to give you a very good show. Just try to give you some information about some stuff that I am somewhat aware of and have heard about, and have done a little research on it, but not a lot. So we even have a haunted bridge per se here in Richardsville, Kentucky area of Warren County. And that bridge has actually been used in a couple of my independent films that I filmed here on location in Bowling Green, Kentucky, Warren County. Um, we personally didn't experience anything there, but there are people who live here in the county that have experienced that about putting the car in neutral on the old Richardsville Bridge, and literally, supposedly, the woman pushes the car. Again, we personally have never experienced that, even when we were filming. So, but that's not to say it doesn't exist. That's not something that I'm here to say. I'm not here to disprove or prove anything. I'm just here to put on a good show and let you hear about certain things and let you do your research or go visit these places. And if you're that much of an adventurer, and see what happens. Okay, moving on. There is another. Well, actually, there's a lot of urban legends here in Kentucky, and another one is up in northern Kentucky. It's the Cody Road Railroad Bridge. Unfortunately, severe flooding has been there a lot, and many decades ago, it's rumored either a woman had drowned there or committed suicide during a flood. Um, there's iron gates attached to either side. They automatically close with the stop sign of the flooding. They came too late, supposedly, and a woman's voice can be heard calling out during the floods. That's something that was an urban legend here in Kentucky. It's not a lot to that particular urban legend story, but it's just another one that I'm aware of. I'm trying to think off the top of my head in my notes because I have some notes here. And some things I'm hoping, I think I have everything up to date to as best I can from the notes that I have. So another one is over at Fisherville, the North Fork Southern Railroad Trestle runs over the Floyd's Fork River. It has been said that the Goat Man lives underneath the trestles and calls out in a childlike voice for help. Those who go are found dead or are never heard from again. So the legend says. Now, could this be one of the creepiest Kentucky urban legends out there? Well, yes, very much it could be. It is, from the stories that I've heard from people that are from that region that know of this, it is, I can't even describe the story the way they do. It's impossible. But just hearing them tell the story sometimes is very creepy in itself. I mean, literally, I've heard people talk about this and actually get to talking like a child and just, I mean, I can't even do it as well as they do it. And it's just very, very creepy. But that's another one of our urban legends. And I don't know that I'm going to get through all of them tonight. I just want to go over some of the more well-known ones. And then there's, I'm trying to think here. Where was it? Where what I had here? Um, oh yeah, there's Hogan's Fountain in Louisville, on Cherokee Park. Um, and the late night park visitors have claimed that on a full moon, the pan goes on a stroll to the statue. These nights are told to be filled with mischief, like car damage and other annoying acts. Now, this is not to say that it's real or not real. As I said, I'm not here to figure that out. I'm just telling you what these urban legends are. Now, Louisville, Kentucky, and unfortunately does have a lot of crime. And it's no offense to the people of Louisville because, every big city has crime. Okay, and Louisville does have a bigger city, but a lot of stuff was going on before that. So that would be interesting to figure out. Did this have any connection to that, or is there something real to the urban legend? Okay, so that's another one. I believe. Let's see, Pilot Knot. Pilot Knot Cemetery. That's another interesting urban legend. Um, People were once, and some still are, a very suspicious lot. A lot of people in the late 1800s, town folk could be the worst. In the rural county of Marion lies a small town called Pine. Well, it's not. Um, in the 1900s, a woman and her 6-year-old daughter were accused of witchcraft. Yes, in the 1900s, long after the Salem witch trials. But their trial was foregone. Instead, the town folks burned both of them at the stake. They feared repercussions of the judgment and took precautions to prevent the child from returning. The child lays today in a steel-lined grave, but the dirt was replaced with concrete and gravel. They then put, according to the story, interconnecting cross fence so that her spirit would be trapped within the borders. To this day, the fence is wrought iron and has several spots that look to be pushed out from the inside by a powerful force. Small footprints in that area can often be seen in the gravel, as well as according to those who have visited the site. The child witch can supposedly pull people down into her grave. Local residents seem fearful of this place. Yes, the local residents are fearful of this place to this day. That should say a lot. This is not a place that I've been to in Kentucky, by the way. I am more of an adventurous type person, and I certainly would not fear traveling to this, but certainly would probably take precautions. Again, not saying I believe or don't believe, because that's not the purpose of my shows. My purpose is for, like when I have my paranormal investigator guest on, for you to listen to the stories that they've done and the investigations they've done to make your own decision. And that's what I will always do. And these type of things, when I'm having a show, you have to make your own decision about what you think is real and what you think is just an urban legend, or if there's more to it, or what really brought that story to light. I'm trying to think. Like I said, so I talked tonight about these urban legends. That's just a few of them here in Kentucky. I'm also going to talk about a ghost story tonight. So I decided about halfway through this that I would talk about a ghost story that I know about too. Now, I personally have experienced some weird things with this particular story. I'm not going to name the location. I'm not going to name the people involved. I'm certainly not going to name the business. Some people may figure this out that have worked with me and over the years, and some may not. And I'm not trying to put it out there about it, but there are some people that know about this story. So several years ago, I was working a third shift, doing basically a loss prevention type security job. And on this particular night, it was more security than it was anything else, because I was alone, but I was not the only person to ever experience weird situations when being alone inside this building. And this was on a Thanksgiving evening. I was the only person in the building, and no one was coming back till the next day. And so a lot of times you get bored and you just you'd have internet access and you'd play music, or you just do searching, and and that's just what you did. Or you watched the cameras back and forth, and sometimes you got up and you went and got something to eat. Sometimes you went to the bathroom, you went back and forth. And this is how boring it could be at times. Well, on this particular night, the boredom is about to go off the scales in the opposite direction of boredom. This is a personal experience I had, but again, I talked to other people who have been in the same situation in this building, and they are not alone. And there's some other weird things that have happened there over the years. Everything from weird noises to lights turning on and off by themselves, to elevators opening by themselves. So there is some kind of activity there, but it seems to be more dominant when you're by yourself than when you're with other people. Although occasionally there were times that, like the elevator per se, it would literally open up by itself. And I had heard this story many times, but I never experienced it until like the last year that I was there. And the last year I was there, I was talking to a particular person on the second floor of this building who had told me time after time after time that this happened. Well, I personally didn't think it was going on because I wasn't seeing it. That was the, even though I love paranormal stuff and I love all that, and I have friends in that are investigators, I guess I was more skeptical of thinking that maybe it was just some kind of electronic issue. Okay, well, there was never any proof of that, but there was also never any proof that I could see of this particular thing going on. Although I have been told time and time again by multiple associates that they believed there was ghost activity there. I never doubted them. And I wasn't the type of person, as someone who was over me at one point, literally just didn't want to believe the story of a security guard telling them that. Telling, she just kind of bypassed it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm more of a open-minded kind of person and willing to listen to the story and try to make sense of the story. In fact, when I was still with this company not that long ago. Oh, but again, I'm not naming it. But I was on a vacation slash filming thing out in California, and one of the things that happened to the person that was working for me while I was gone, a person in the call center. There's a call center in that building, so some people might have figured this out. Might figure this out that know me. But what happened was she went to the restroom, and literally the lights went off, and no one was around. And video proved that no one had went behind her. There was no opening of the doors. Literally, the light just went off in the restroom by itself. Now, obviously, there is some kind of activity there. Don't know why there's activity there. I've been told a couple of weird stories, and I don't know that those stories are true. I've talked about them a couple of times to some people, but I'm like, whether or not that is true, I have never been able to prove that. And I try not to throw out a story on the part that I can't prove just because someone told me something. Um, the briefing of that story is that there was a skull that was removed from the original, um, you know, digging and was never reported, et cetera, when they built the building, the original building. I don't really know if that story is true. I only bring it up because it was told to me. I think that perhaps may have just been that person or person, I won't name who they are, that worked in the construction, just had heard other stuff about what I knew there, and I think they might have just tried to up the story a little bit. I don't, as I said, I couldn't get any solid evidence of that, but I do have solid evidence of activity going on at this building. The solid evidence is, like I have mentioned there. And now back to what happened with me on this particular night that I'm by myself. I am, I'm never really scared of anything because I've worked in those type of fields for a long time, and not that I'm doing it now because I'm doing my thing. But I was never scared. I stopped being scared a long time ago.